Hello, good morning once again. My name is Fred van Niekerk, and this is our fifth webinar for 2023 being hosted by Carrick. It's webinars that we promised at the beginning of the year that are aimed at educating our clients and prospects across Africa on all their international, global, and offshore options when it comes to personal financial preservation strategies. And of course, that's what Carrick stands for, International Preservation Strategies for our high net worth individual clients across the African continent. So perhaps some of you might be asking that if you're a private wealth advisory firm, a private wealth preservation firm, why are you talking corporate structures in Mauritius? Well, the answer is vastly simpler than you might imagine. Most of our clients are heavily involved in wealth creation across Africa, whether that's business, whether that's professions, but ultimately their personal financial future will be directly linked. The success of where they will retire one day will be directly linked to their business's success. So therefore, us getting involved in advising, in facilitating more effective and efficient ways for our clients to run their businesses, therefore making them more successful. Getting involved is in their and our direct interest. How do we help our clients not only improve their private arrangements, but also their business arrangements? And therefore, corporate structuring plays a massive role in how we benefit our clients. And that's why we work closely with people like Shweta. Shweta, welcome. Really nice to see you on the webinar today.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for having me here today.
If you don't mind, I'm going to embarrass you slightly by introducing you to all our listeners out there today. And just to put the pressure on you, because I know you were quite nervous in joining us here today, and that's perfectly fine. We've got people joining us from Angola, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, India. I love that one. People signing in from India today, but for Mauritius, quite appropriate, because I know you guys do a huge amount of business out that way as well. Kenya, Malawi, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, and then, of course, South Africa. Now, Shweta and I have been working together for some time, and as corporations and professionals, we've been walking a similar path for many, many, many years. Shweta comes at her career with more than 15 years worth of experience at this stage, directly linked to governance, to tax, to corporation structuring, and then, of course, the old international trusts, be it for individuals or families or corporations as well. Off the back of that, having her honors in law and management, but ultimately her MBA in financial services more than qualifies her to assist us here today in explaining the concept of corporate structures for African businessmen and women. Shweta, welcome again. I'm going to throw you in on the deep side immediately. You started your own Mauritian management company a little while back after stepping out as a director for a very large firm. That is part of the reason why we prefer to work with you, because it's a small, dynamic, a personalized service that we can offer our clients. But why the need for management companies in the first place?
So a management company provides professional services related to management and administration of companies and trusts. Our primary role is to assist clients in establishing and operating their business entities or investment structures in and from Mauritius. And one of the obligations of a management company is to ensure that client companies are properly managed and administered according to the applicable laws and regulations in Mauritius. So as a management company, we become the business partners of clients who want to set up offshore structures to operate in and from Mauritius.
Okay, and I think it's only fair to let our listeners into a little secret as to why we know each other. And that is
Yes.
because Carrick, as a pan-African business, so for those of you who don't know the physical structure of Carrick, our head office is down in Cape Town. That's where I'm sitting at the moment. But I've got offices in Mauritius who deal with our clients across most of our Eastern African markets. But I've also got direct client-facing offices in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, and Malawi. And our international business is run with our management partners or management company partners in Mauritius. So even a monolith, a pan-African company like Carrick uses and needs the services of management companies in Mauritius. And that's ultimately how we got to know each other, Shweta. So that's perhaps a bit
Exactly.
of an inside secret for our listeners out there. But let's deal with
Yeah.
the other question in the room, and that is, why Mauritius? Everywhere I go in Africa, people talk about Mauritius being the almost obvious choice when it comes to either immigration, personal financial planning, but in this case, corporate structuring as well. As a proud Mauritian representative, what can you tell us about Mauritius as the jurisdiction and why it should be the jurisdiction of choice for African businesses?
So, firstly, I believe that Mauritius and management companies in Mauritius have a wealth of information and experience of how offshore structures can be used in the context of Africa. And this extends well beyond the use of offshore structure as a conduit for FDI. So, plus being a tried and tested channel for the flow of FDI, there are numerous offshore advantages of using Mauritius. First being the global recognition. Mauritius has a stable and supportive government, a strong economy, and a business-friendly environment. We also enjoy the OECD's whitelist status. I'd argue that we are also an industry leader. We are at the forefront of best practices in the international regulation, and we are compliant with international norms. In terms of business and economic environment, doing business in and from Mauritius is both easy and smooth. We have long-standing cooperation agreements with most African and international bodies. We also have strong, solid legal framework in place. And most importantly, Mauritius has a very attractive fiscal system. The corporate tax rate is 15%, but some companies are eligible to a tax exemption or a tax rate of 3%, depending on the tax regime or the activities of the company. And so companies are also able to claim credits from tax liability on their tax liability against tax they have actually paid outside Mauritius. Other fiscal advantages include no withholding taxes on dividend or interest, no capital gains tax, no state duty, no inheritance, wealth, or gift tax, and there is no foreign exchange control. So this is huge for African businesses who wants to operate internationally, who wants to do trading internationally or internationally and regionally, and who are encountering numerous challenges of doing business in Africa. And last is the legitimate confidentiality.
Yes.
So,
okay, tell me quickly then. So we certainly have seen from a we've been on the island since 2015. So we're pushing almost our 10th year on the island now. And from my staff on my advisors in the office, I certainly have a first-hand account that the Mauritian environment has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. You've been involved over the last 15 years. How would you say the Mauritian environment for friendliness towards or encouragement towards corporation management and investment has changed over the last 15 years?
I think as a jurisdiction who wants to evolve and be compliant with international laws and practices, a lot has been done over the past decade to make it easier for investors to invest through Mauritius. So there are numerous laws that have been implemented, regulations that have been put in place, and all this together with in a banking system, with a regulatory framework, makes it so easy for people to set up companies and to operate from Mauritius.
Well, I can certainly bear witness to that. So, as global specialists, my clients have structures all around the world, have investments all around the world, and over the last 2 decades that I've been doing this job, the obvious jurisdictions have been places like Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man, and it's in the last decade that Mauritius has become a real global player and competitor. And when it comes, I think you said it right at the beginning, when it comes to African knowledge and Africa friendly, Mauritius is building an unstoppable reputation for being the jurisdiction of choice, specifically in Africa. So yeah, we are very, very happy to, one, have our offices there, but two, to be able to recommend it as a jurisdiction of choice to our clients. But let's get into the nitty-gritty then. Let's get into what corporate structuring would mean. Now, I must apologize to all our viewers out there. We're clearly having some delay issues with our presentations. These things do crop up, but just bear with us. We'll just soldier on if you'd like. So let's talk about what this would look like in the first place. And Shweta, I'm specifically asking for you to perhaps create a bit of a backstory on which type of client should or could benefit most obviously from a Mauritius corporate structure.
So would you like me to use the example of John, the farmer?
Yes, the one on the screen, yeah.
Okay, so how I see the offshore advantage being applied in Africa is non-exhaustive. We will take the simple example of John. He's a citizen and resident of Zimbabwe. His company is in Zimbabwe and exports paprika and passion fruit everywhere, every year worldwide. It includes African countries, countries in America and Europe. One of the challenges, or the many challenges that he faces, include volatile currency, foreign exchange controls, and the difficulty to keep profits in hard currency. And I believe that many of our listeners today will most probably find themselves in the same situation. They will be able to relate to the situation of John, because these are the main drivers for setting up offshore structure. So what are his options? It is to set up an intermediary in Mauritius who will buy from Zimbabwe and sell to the clients internationally. So instead of using his Zimbabwean company to sell directly to his clients internationally, he will set up an intermediary in Mauritius, which will be a trading intermediary, which will buy from his Zimbabwean company and then sell to the end clients. So the contract will be with the end clients, but the goods do not have to transit through Mauritius. They will be shipped directly from Zimbabwe to the end clients in Europe, for example. So logistically, it makes sense, and it makes things easier for them.
Indeed, and in fact, this example is a bit of a naughty example because we've changed the names, but this is a case that you and I are specifically dealing with at the moment. And I love being involved with these things because I learn with every new case as well. And it's perhaps worth mentioning right from the off that there are very few one-size-fits-all solutions in this area. Every case, and we've got so many questions we can deal with later in the webinar, but every case really needs individual consideration and advice to make sure that what the solution for one client is appropriate and in line with regulation, etc. But in this case specifically, our client, one of their issues, one of their hurdles being a Zimbabwean farmer, is that many of his business partners overseas, so his clients overseas, have huge amount of source regulation that they have to abide by in their markets, which, whether it's fair trade, whether it's treating their employees properly, whether it's making sure that the products have a decent carbon footprint, but very, very importantly, making sure that the products are bought from markets where there is clarity on money laundering and terrorism, etc. Now, this sounds bizarre to some of us, I'm sure, but if you're dealing with Europe and America as your trading partners, the large corporations have to abide by international law of import and export. And in this case, our client was struggling to be able to prove that his business was decent and above board simply because he was dealing directly out of Zimbabwe. Mind-blowing to an African businessman like myself, but these are the daily struggles of our businessmen out there that we don't necessarily understand or grasp. In structuring a Mauritius structure for this client, the deal is now done between Mauritius and America, and Mauritius being one of the recognized financial jurisdictions around the world, immediately take all those problems away for the client. So a practical day-to-day assistance, which didn't even come to mind as obvious, which completely changed our client's future global business. So let's put some structure to this. So what you've just explained there, Shweta, is a very, very simple structure. John is a farmer. John has a Zimbabwean company, and he's currently selling, for argument's sake, $500,000 worth of goods per year to his international client, right? So that's kind of what you said. It's a very, very basic structure, right? Just want to ask you quickly here. We are using a farmer who exports goods as the example because it's easily explained and, for all due respect, easily grasped by our listeners. But there are many, many other businesses and professionals that can benefit as well. Please give me a bit of an idea as to which other types of businessmen or professionals should be sitting up straight and taking attention right now.
So that would include anyone in doing cross-border or international trading, be it in any type of product, be it in agricultural products, in other types of manufacturing products, heavy equipment, any type of products. Any company trading in any type of product can use an offshore structure. Other types of activities would include consultancy services, consulting, specialized services, and all this will employ comparable strategies that are tailored to meet the specific requirements and characteristics of each individual business. So you will know that the specific requirements of each business person will differ based on the regulatory environment in the African country where he operates. For example, a client who is looking at setting up a company which will provide consulting services, the prerequisite will be different for a South African compared to a Zimbabwean. So consulting with a management company in Mauritius can provide tailored advice and services based on the unique needs of each business and each client.
Okay.
And so similarly, yes.
Okay, is it fair to say that any professional listening, any businessman out there who is currently either expanding outside the borders of his country or already generates revenue outside the borders of his country? It doesn't matter if that's through consultancy, through services, through physical export. Any business that either electronically, financially, IT, physical business, if you are generating wealth outside the borders of your own country, it is worth having a consult with a Mauritian management company to understand how that would benefit them.
Correct. So any business, to put this into perspective, it can be someone who does business on a regional or international scale, someone who is successful in his home market and is looking to expand into new jurisdictions, someone who is primarily concerned about the security of his income and assets, and someone who is looking at structuring his finances for maximum tax efficiency. So it does not have to be related to one specific market or industry.
Got you.
It really is up to based on the objective of the individual, of the business person.
Okay, so we've had a number of questions come through. Let me see if I can track down the specific one here. There was a gentleman out in Ghana who wanted to know about how do I move? Here we go. Do I need to reside in Mauritius? We know the answer to that is no. But the question is, how do I move my business to Mauritius? And that's not what we're talking about today. In fact, why don't you use, back to our example of John and his Zimbabwean company, why don't we use him as an example as to how a Mauritius corporation would fit into his current way of doing business?
So, to start with, it is not about moving to Mauritius, but setting up a structure which will operate from Mauritius, irrespective of where the client is based. It is about finding a business partner to be part of the business strategy. And this is why in a management company helps to provide the advice, the guidance to those people who want to set up structures from Mauritius. So if we take the example of John, he will be based in Zimbabwe. He will set up a company in Mauritius. The company will have the contract with the end clients. The only thing that the company will be doing from Mauritius is buying from Zimbabwe and selling it to the end clients. So John does not have to move to Mauritius for that to be done.
Okay, so in this case, we are talking about our clients remaining in their country of residence, keeping their business where their market is, or their production is, or their farm is in this case, or their factory is, or where their family is, or where their profession is. But it is complementing their international business by establishing a trading partner in Mauritius to whom they now sell their stock, and the stock gets on-sold from there. So in this example we've got on the screen at the moment, our farmer John now sells his goods rather than $500 directly to his international client. It gets sold for $300,000 to his Mauritian company, and from the Mauritian company it then gets sold on at $500. So I'm very certain that everybody would have worked out there that that means $200,000 worth of profit is now retained in the Mauritian company. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, right. So now comes a whole bunch of questions, right? There's been a number of questions come through from clients all over Africa. And I can summarize, bunch them all together in one question, and that's this. Is this legal? How does this work in practice across Africa?
It is perfectly legal to have a structure, to structure your business in this way. The legality of the offshore structure really depends on various factors, including the manner in which the structure is set up and operated. You know, in the past, Mauritius was used, and like many other financial centers, was used and was seen as a soft spot for aggressive tax planning. This is no longer the case, neither in perception nor in reality. The motivation and benefit of using offshore structures today include tax efficiency, but it's also more about operational efficiency and access to opportunities. So to answer your question, it's perfectly legal. Offshore structures can be used for legitimate business purposes. We management companies help navigate the legal landscape, ensure compliance, design a structure that align the business objectives of the client, and at the same time ensure that they are adhering with applicable laws and regulations.
And I think that really speaks to the people who are still with us will know that we've said a few times now, why should Mauritius be your preferred jurisdiction for the African businessman or the African high net worth individual? And we've kept on saying because Mauritius understands Africa. And that's really where, Shweta, your experience and Mauritius's experience over years plays a vital role. We've mentioned that every individual situation, based on their business, based on their personal needs, but also based on their current country of residence and where their business is, needs hopefully we've dealt with that. What I will say from my side is it always seems, and here I do hope that this doesn't sound too horrible to our listeners, but you know who asks me that question? Small players. Because the big companies across Africa have already built their international structures over the last decade. They've done their research. They've had the input. They've paid the thousands of dollars into lawyers and corporate specialists like Shweta to make sure that international corporate structures are directly complementary to the African business and legal. People who still ask me these days whether international corporate structuring is legal or not, I know that they perhaps the smaller players or simply uninformed at this stage and slightly behind the times. Right, okay. Let's go on to ownership then, Shweta, because this now becomes vital. What we've just put on the screen there is that $200,000 worth of profit is now going to sit in Mauritius. So the obvious question should be, who owns it? How is it run?
Yeah, so the client has two options, either to hold the shares of the company that has been set up in Mauritius, to hold the shares directly in his name, or to set up a trust which will hold the shares on his behalf. And there are advantages of considering a trust as part of a business structure. A trust is a legal arrangement and it has numerous benefits, which includes, first is asset protection. It protects business assets from various risks and liabilities. Second benefit is privacy and confidentiality. Using a trust as a shareholder of your offshore structure, of your offshore company, can enhance privacy and confidentiality. This is because the details of a trust are generally kept private. There is no requirement to register trust in Mauritius, for example, unlike other countries. And also by establishing a trust, it enables efficient succession planning for the business. Sometimes we have clients who have succession issues, and one of the ways that they deal with that is setting up a trust, which will ensure the smooth transfer of ownership and management of the offshore company in the event of incapacitation or passing. This helps preserve the continuity and long-term viability of the business in general. And last, also very important is that utilizing a trust structure can provide potential tax advantages. It does allow for effective tax planning. So for me, considering these advantages by incorporating a trust into the business structure can provide enhanced asset protection, privacy, succession planning, potential tax benefit, and ultimately greater control over the client's offshore company.
Perfect. Okay. So now the next follow-on question then is, what can happen with the money while it's there? Simply leaving it in a corporate bank account in Mauritius obviously isn't the point, right? And this is where Carrick and Shweta's company Estone play a very, very important role, because ultimately we as Carrick then get appointed with our client's approval, obviously, as the investment advisors or intermediaries to the trust itself and to the company itself, making sure that the wealth that's sitting in Mauritius is actually then filtered into a risk-appropriate market investments. These companies could buy property internationally. It could set up a pension type or education type savings plans for its family members. There really is a world of opportunity, of financial planning opportunities open to us and therefore to our clients once these structures are funded. But ultimately, the magic starts in its very structure. In almost all cases, when we start dealing with our high net worth individual clients across Africa, step one is externalizing wealth from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Malawi, from Zambia. And that in itself often is not only challenging, but for our brethren and brothers in Malawi is now impossible, because Forex is no more in Malawi. Now, this is a real concern and not something we should take any type of advantage of, if you'd like, but it certainly serves as a huge reminder that over your business's 10-year, 20-year, 40-year life cycle, your changing economy, changing political regimes, and therefore changing access to global hard currency is constantly going to be at risk, depending on the success or non-success of your most recent government. Nigeria is struggling, as I'm sure all my Nigerian listeners can agree out there. Malawi, the borders are closed. Zambia happens to be massively open at the moment, which is wonderful. But it's a wonderful opportunity to set up your structures correctly. It's not a wonderful opportunity simply to put your head in the sand and hope that everything will remain fine. A structure like this removes wealth out of your African business, stores it in hard currency offshore as a standard business practice. Can I ask you, Shweta, let's say I'm Farmer John, and we've spoken about Farmer John so lovely here. Farmer John needs a new combine harvester next year. He needs access to $1 million, and he knows that he's got $5 million in his offshore structure. how can the Mauritian structure now filter money back into Zimbabwe to help his business again?
So another way and
That would come through the
another.
trust, hey?
Can you say that again?
Sorry, that would come through the trust.
Yes. So the money will go into the trust as a dividend, and the trust will distribute to the beneficiary. So the client, when the client will set up the trust, he will be a settler, but also a beneficiary of the trust, together with his family members, for example. And that trust will, from time to time, distribute trust funds to him for his living expenses, for his children's education, and when the trust is distributing it, it will be distributing to him as a beneficiary of the trust. That's a way of sending the money back to him, to Zimbabwe.
Okay, so I think it's important, and why I asked you the questions, to know that there's a working relationship between Farmer John and the corporate structure in Mauritius, that no matter where the business goes in the future, they can assist each other in being more successful, and in this case, it being able to filter back into the business in Zimbabwe. Now, this all sounds fantastic, Shweta. It sounds obvious, and I'm sure and hopefully we've got numerous people out there listening at this going, wow. One, I'm glad to hear that it's achievable. Two, that I don't have to move to Mauritius. Three, that it's appropriate for my business. But you know what? This all sounds incredibly complicated. I don't know anything about the paperwork requirements. I don't know anything about the regulatory requirements. I've never even been to Mauritius. I have to go, but this sounds too complicated for me. What can you say about that?
So this is why management companies like Estone, who specializes in international business structures and company secretarial, so we advise clients firstly how to structure their businesses, and we then manage those entities on their behalf. So you will see the key, the list of services that a management company in general provides in Mauritius, and this includes and just this list is non-exhaustive. We can do much more than that, but essentially the core services includes advisory and transactional support. Sometimes corporate structures become inefficient, so we help clients to build more efficient operating structures, improve their operational transparency, and at the same time optimize costs. So as part of our service, we advise clients on their structure. Then we manage those structures on their behalf. We incorporate companies, we provide registered office, registered agent, company secretary, resident directors in Mauritius. We then do general administration, such as opening and operating of bank accounts. We handle transactions on their behalf. We also maintain their statutory records and registers in Mauritius. So essentially, we become their administrative office in Mauritius. We also assist them and provide them with accounting services, because one of the requirements of companies, statutory requirement, is to keep accounting records and file financial statements or summary in due course. And this is one of the services that we provide to our clients. We sometimes act as an extension of the in-house accounting team. We deliver transactional, we support them in the transactional payments. So all these includes, all this is with regard to accounting. Then our compliance team, and we also work with an extended network of highly qualified professionals. We advise clients on their regulatory and legislative, regulatory requirement, and also on changes that have been implemented, for example, in the merchant laws and regulation, and how they are affected and what to do to stay compliant. We also, management companies also, assist clients. We accompany clients throughout immigration and residency process, that is immigration and residency in Mauritius. So there is one thing that we didn't mention earlier. Mauritius clients can also opt to come and stay and work in Mauritius. So this is one of the possibilities, to come and work and live in Mauritius. And for that, they have to apply for permits, residence permit. This is where we accompany them in the process of application, introduction to banks for personal bank account opening, and also office setup and management support. And last is the support and outsourcing services. This is really customized as per client's needs. It's doing back office processing, bookkeeping, payroll management, assistance with procurement activities, etc., etc. So it's a long list, but all these are key service that management companies provide.
Yeah, I think there's two comments I would put here. The first is anybody who confuses a Mauritius company with a shelf company should now know that this is not the case. This is a living, breathing, managed, regulated, reported, audited business partner. And this should really answer a lot of the concerns that were dealt with earlier of people asking about the legality, etc. So there's a huge amount of effort and services that are powered in from Mauritius' side, and in many cases, it's a plug and play solution. In many cases, where yes, you don't want to be a lawyer in Zambia who works with his business partner in Mauritius as they do legal work for a Egyptian engineering firm, business that happens on an everyday basis when I meet our clients out there. Your speciality is law. Your speciality is assisting with contracts and labor for your engineering firm in Egypt. Your speciality is not running a company in Mauritius. And that is where a good, solid Mauritian management company really, really comes into its own. I've mentioned before, I'll mention again, Carrick as a Pan-African multinational financial firm benefited directly from these types of services in Mauritius. So this is not a case of us saying people should consider. It's a case of us having tested it and knowing the benefits that it brings to our clients and can talk with some authority. Guys, I think you'll find that on your screen or on your screens right now, the listeners out there, there's a little chat box, a little chat drop-down box. We're going to move into the question and answer section of today's presentation. Now, I have a lot of questions that you've sent in pre, and I'll deal with those right now. But if there's anything that Shweta and I have discussed today, or you want further clarity on, please, we've got about 12 minutes left in today's webinar. Now is the time to jump on the chat and go and put questions to us, please. But in the meantime, then, Shweta, we had a question from David Christian out in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. His question was, what do we do in regards to structures, compliance, management, banking setup, fees, setup, management services? I think that's a very good question, but also a question you have just answered. It's plug and play. With a decent, regulated, experienced management company like Estone, these should not be hindrances. Quite the opposite. They're quite a pleasant experience opening your company. There has been quite a lot of questions from a number of people who seem sold on the idea already, because their question is, how long does it take to set up a structure like this? Can you perhaps give us an idea as to timeframes?
So it will To set up the structure, to start with, we need a list of documents from the shareholder, ultimate beneficial owner of the company. Once these are received, it depends on the complexity of the structure, the business activity. It can take up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the company to be set up, and another 10 days for the bank account to be open. So all in all, a month for the company to be operational.
Yeah, I will hasten to say that is once the final decision has been made on what type of company, because there are two main types of companies. The first is the global
business company,
and the other
is the authorized company.
Right, fantastic. And I told you we're not going to go into those in detail today because it's simply too complicated. What I can only suggest is any of our listeners who want to understand which of those would be appropriate for themselves and their business speciality, a consultation will be required. Sandra Sitole from Zimbabwe, Bulawayo, asks an interesting question, and that is, kindly give us examples of companies that have leveraged on corporate structures for global markets. It would be terribly unfair and simply breaking confidentiality between ourselves and our clients to start listing the various corporations. But Sandra, I'm going to have to look you directly in the eyes through the screen. Listen to what I said earlier. The big global players have already done this. Right? I can take it as default. When you drive down your main road in Bulawayo and you see large corporations, they probably have an international structure already. It's the smaller players who are only waking up to the opportunities now. And really, it is time to act as far as that is concerned. Right, Julian Ashun, exploring how to migrate my mining company. He's out in Ghana. We've used him before. Again, this is not about moving your business to Mauritius. It could be, as Shweta has just explained in the last one, if that is part of your personal strategy of you wanting to move to Mauritius, that could absolutely be the case. But what we're talking about today is that you keep your industrial hub, your economic hub, your business in your market where you are at the moment. You simply use a Mauritian corporate structure as a global trading partner and unlock the benefits of hard currency, keeping profits offshore, and effective international management of your company. Here's a question for you, a very specific, Shweta. So hopefully you've got this one to hand. I'm sure you do. You hardly ever disappoint me. Can my Mauritian, this is from Dylan Mwanza in Zambia, in a town called Kitwe. Can my Mauritius company have a controlling stake in my Zambian company?
Yes, so one of the other activities that an offshore company can do is, in fact, investment holding, to be used as an investment holding vehicle to hold investments, to consolidate investments and to protect investments. For example, so if he has shares in his local company, the merchant company can hold the shares in his local company, and this applies also for clients who hold shares in multiple companies in Africa. They place the merchant company over the business, which then we talk about it, which merchant company is itself held by a trust to deal with the succession issues. So it's common practice. In fact, trading, consultancy, investment holding activities are the three main activities that are carried out by global business companies, merchant companies, merchant offshore companies.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen out there, I can't wait to introduce you to Shweta on a one-to-one basis. I've never been able to ask her a question that she can't answer, and generally the answers are distinct, and knowledgeable, just as she just proved right there. So a very, very happy relationship with Shweta. Right, okay, we've got a question here from Abiodun Salami in Nigeria. I think we've answered it already, but perhaps you can give us the very short answer on this. Do I need to be a citizen of Mauritius to benefit from these structures and this advice?
In fact, the requirement is to not be a citizen of Mauritius to benefit from the structures. A person who is a citizen or a citizen of Mauritius cannot set up these types of structures. They are exclusively for non-resident and non-citizen.
Fantastic. Which is a jurisdictional similarity for all global recognized financial jurisdictions, and in that I will include all the Channel Islands like Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man, and then the American versions, which is British Virgin Islands and places like the Cayman Islands, and then obviously Mauritius for Africa. In all those cases, they design law, they design tax regimes that invite non-residents to use their jurisdiction as a corporate head office or a personal wealth preservation jurisdiction. So they're inviting non-residents to bring their wealth to their island. So residency is almost never a prerequisite, and quite the opposite, meaning of having residency in that jurisdiction often removes those beneficial options you might have to your access. Right, the next question here is from Blessed Saint in Nigeria. A lot of Nigerians here today. I think that might be, well, caused by the challenges that Nigerian businessmen are experiencing at the moment. It's getting hard, hey? Massive economy, huge wealth, huge businesses. But no matter how big you are, if you're not correctly structured, your macro and microeconomic environment can make life hard. So act while you can. I'm talking to the Zambians specifically. Your things are going well at the moment. You've got an opportunity to structure correctly and make yourself Africa-proof for the next 4 decades. The Blessed Saint in Nigeria asks, can I move my internet company? And I think the message there, it's nothing to do with what type of business, well, maybe a small way, but very little to do with what type of business you're in, whether it's production, manufacturing, farming, whether you're exporting dresses, whether you're in mining, or whether you're a lawyer doing cross-border work, or whether you're in I almost said Bitcoin. I don't say Bitcoin ever in these meetings, right? Whether you're in financial services is what I meant. Or whether you have an internet-based company, as long as you are generating revenue outside the borders of your current residency country, you could benefit from a Mauritius corporation, and therefore should really get in touch to understand how your business itself would be benefiting. Right. What are the processes?
Maybe, Fred, I'd like to add that businesses, they establish creative business models. You know, it's all about creative business models, strategies, strong strategies, and this will, you know, these strategies such as, you know, such as developing export channels, they help to manage issues that clients are currently facing in Africa.
Yeah, that's perfect. Right, there was a question here. What is the process to follow? Now, we hope that what that lady meant, that Sam Ndahura from Uganda. The process to follow is very simple. You'll see at the bottom of the screen there is our general information email address. That's webinar@carrickfs.com. If you have an interest to discuss this matter further directly with Shweta, that's the email address to use. Yeah, that'll go to our central webinar control system, which is a lovely lady called Simone. And based on your specific question or query, it'll either be referred on to myself to deal with the wealth advisory side of things, or to Shweta, who will then get in contact to deal with your specific arrangements, specific situations, specific business, personal to yourself. The process is certainly not daunting. It starts off with an online consultation that is simply myself, Shweta, and you having a sit down for an hour or so to discuss your general wants, needs, and current situation. Off the back of that, if we believe that you could benefit from holding a specific Mauritian-based structure, that's when Shweta comes into her own. She will go off, use her experience, her knowledge, her position in the market to design a bespoke structure based around your very needs. This is then presented to you over time, again, face-to-face in the Teams meeting, but also in writing, for your consideration. If you are then happy that this structure would complement and benefit your current arrangements, we close business. We sign contracts and applications, and ultimately you appoint Shweta and her company as your management company of choice in Mauritius, and she then goes with full efficiency in starting to build the structures. And within a month, as she said, you could be the proud owner of a trading partner, a business partner, a company in Mauritius, which becomes your facilitator to global business. Shweta, I want to thank you very, very much for joining us here today. I know that this is slightly out of your comfort zone, but I think you've done a cracking job. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you very much, Carrick and Fred.
It's an absolute pleasure, Shweta. I know that you're already working with numerous of our clients over the last few weeks. Very, very busy, so thank you. We've still got 100 and, well, very, very many people logged in here. So I want to thank all of our listeners. We're smack on time. Hour is what we asked for, and after an hour, we're signing off. I want to thank you all for signing in. I hope you found this handy. If you have any further questions, please feel free to get in contact, and we'll try and get back to all of you. And then finally, I hope to see some of you in future. In roughly a month's time, we will be having our next Pan-African webinar, with the aim, as always, share with our clients and our prospects, whether they're in Egypt, Nigeria, or Cape Town, what their options as African-based businessmen or African-based high net worth individuals, what their options truly are when it comes to the global wealth preservation world. And that's where Carrick like to educate our clients, believing that better information leads to better choices. Thank you very much for joining us all today, guys and ladies out there, and hope to see you soon. Shweta, thanks again, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.